Good evening and welcome to Plain Talk. This is a pre-recorded program. It's recorded on the 21st of June, Wednesday, and it will be shown sometime on the 30th of June. Many of you may associate the Hare Krishna movement with non-traditional chanting, singing, cymbals clanging, dancing, and not to mention the quality of their food. Tonight on Plain Talk, we have the opportunity to speak with some of the leaders of the movement in Guyana. Let me get their names correctly. Mr. Kalakanta Das, Mr. Ranchor Das, and Mr. Makunda Das. Das is a common name. The name that is common, meaning servant, and so it's one big happy religious family, but it's not biological family. So, servants, gentlemen, welcome to Plain Talk.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
Would it be correct to describe Hare Krishna, the organization or the entity, as a religion, or is it a movement?
It's a movement. A movement implies that it's a grassroots practice that is adopted by people across various traditions of religious backgrounds, racial backgrounds. That's the reality of the Hare Krishna movement all over the world.
Anybody wants to add? No? Now, so is there it's not a religion then, is it?
No, it has its roots in Hinduism, and scholars would look at it as a branch of Hinduism. But in fact, the teachings of the Hare Krishna movement, based on this book, the Bhagavad-Gita, it begins by explaining that the soul inside each one of us is not affiliated with any religion, any nationality, any color, any gender. The soul is an eternal part and parcel of God.
Is it because it's associated with Hinduism, would that be correct to say?
Yes?
And Hinduism is not considered one of the monotheistic religions of the world, like Christianity is, or Islam is.
Well, there are two divisions of Hinduism. One is polytheistic, one is monotheistic.
Yes.
Our tradition comes from the monotheistic side. But the word Hinduism, Chris, it doesn't appear anywhere in the Sanskrit literature. It's a Farsi word, actually.
Yes.
Referring to people who live in a certain area.
A particular area, yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it would be something like calling a Jewish person a Semite, because they come from a certain part of the world.
Yes.
Or a Christian, a Semite. But they say, no, I'm a devotee of Christ. So in the same way, we Hare Krishna people say we're devotees of Krishna. And Krishna is a name for God, the monotheistic deity.
Despite the fact that it's not a religion, but a movement. That's the distinction I'm trying to get.
Mm-hmm. Well, religion is something that can change. What we are teaching is actually Dharma, or Sanatan Dharma. And the Dharma of every person, of every living being, is service. That's why all of the names end in Das.
Yes.
So we're all serving somebody. We're serving our country, our family, our friends, our boss. The principle of Bhagavad-Gita is that we are all by nature eternal servants of God. And service to God is not restricted to any one religion. Religion, in fact, tends to be something that can take us away from service of God. Service of God is a natural expression of love. And religion may be confined to rituals or dogma or some historical tradition.
But many... Sorry, sir, yes, please go
Today
on.
we could be a Hindu, and tomorrow we could be a Muslim. The next day we could be a Christian.
And yet be Hare Krishna.
The point is that religion changes, but Dharma doesn't change.
And Dharma means what? If one were to explain Dharma is a word from Sanskrit, I think.
Yes, it means the intrinsic quality of a thing. For example, the Dharma of water is wet. The Dharma of sugar is sweet. So the Dharma of a living being is service. Where we direct that service is up to us. And what Hare Krishna teaches, Bhagavad-Gita teaches, is that when service is directed to God, then we become happy. So the movement, the Hare Krishna movement, is really aimed to help people enjoy a higher level of happiness than ordinarily experienced.
But the concept of happiness, different people have different concepts of happiness as well. Some people think happiness is just having a big bank account. Some may think that physical attraction, sexual ability, all of those things. What in fact is the Hare Krishna movement's concept of happiness?
Well, the soul in the Bhagavad-Gita is described as Sat Chit Ananda, that it's eternal, that it's full of knowledge, and that it's naturally very blissful. So in the process that's given in Bhagavad-Gita, this natural bliss is uncovered through the spiritual practices. And going with this idea of service, we all are looking for happiness, and I think a lot of people can agree that love is where we find happiness. And so Bhagavad-Gita and Krishna are giving this concept of what is real love. And through this concept of true love, we can experience true happiness.
And what is that concept of true love?
Well, you could say, I think it's fair to say that, how do you express love? What is the highest expression of love? That would maybe be selfless service. And in that service, you find happiness, serving others whom you love. And so Bhagavad Gita is giving us the process to which we can serve the highest supreme being, Krishna, and we can find this highest bliss.
Now, in Buddhism, that bliss is achieved partly, and I just dabble in it. I'd rather say it, but it's a recognition that life is about suffering, and that by detaching yourself and devotion, meditation, and perhaps as you move from one life cycle to another, you move upwards. Is that the same kind? Is that happiness the absence of distress that the Buddha speaks about?
It is, but it is a byproduct of that loving service. You follow? In other words, instead of making detachment a goal, when we make service a goal, detachment comes automatically. And there's a reason for that. That the happiness that's derived from service surpasses that you can obtain from anything external. So when you're getting a higher taste, naturally you become detached from a lower taste.
You mentioned that the religious book associated with the movement is the Bhagavad-Gita, which is considered one of the holy books of Hindus. And as you correctly pointed out, the origin is rather a location. Buddhism, would you say you're an offshoot of Hinduism, as say Buddhism is? I mean, the Buddha went away from his palace and he was born a Hindu, he lived a Hindu. He practiced certain Hindu precepts, but he moved away and there was this movement called Buddhism, which I'm going to ask you about. Is that the same kind of thing? And is there any comparison between the Hare Krishna movement and, say, Buddhism?
The detachment aspect, the monastic aspect, are external similarities, but the goals of the two traditions are very different. So you asked me first, is this an offshoot of Hinduism?
Yeah.
Like sort of a rebel group or sort of a reformation?
A reformation rather than rebel, yes.
Yes, Chaitanya, who is the founder of the Hare Krishna movement, 500 years ago in Bengal, introduced the chanting of God's names as the best kind of meditation for this present materialistic age. So scholars might say this is an offshoot. We would look at it more as a fructification of the ancient tradition in a way that's applicable for today. So now, Buddha rebelled against his princely upbringing to pursue truth.
Yes.
And that's the commonality between all seekers of religion, regardless of whether you call them religions or movements or whatever. Seeking truth is a natural instinct for the human being. We want to understand our place in the universe. We want to understand the purpose of our lives. So Bhagavad-Gita is more of a science than a religion. The science is that if you direct your service towards the Supreme, you'll be happy. If you direct your service towards temporary things, you'll be frustrated. Because those temporary things come and go, they don't bring us lasting happiness. But a relationship with our Maker brings us lasting happiness that goes even beyond the fetters of this one particular lifetime.
I try to understand Buddhism. Buddhism doesn't believe in this concept of a maker.
That's right. That's the difference between the two. Yes, Buddhism believes in just nirvana, getting rid of everything.
Yes.
Yes. So that's a natural...
Self-realization, I think it's called.
Well, it's a natural reaction to suffering, isn't it? When things are difficult, we just want to get rid of them all. The Gita teaches a different approach. Rather, to learn to use those things in this world for the service of God. And in that way, one is detached from them and at the same time satisfied. In other words, Buddhism has no relationship between the individual and God.
Yes.
The Gita is all about that relationship.
Now, Christianity has Jesus Christ. Islam is Prophet Muhammad. The Jews, maybe Moses. The Catholics, the Pope, Jesus, probably Mary more than the Pope. Buddha, Buddhists have the Buddha. Who is the lead? Is there such a concept in Hare Krishna that there is a leader, a founder? And I think you may have mentioned
Chaitanya, but Rancher, would you like to say more about that?
Lord Chaitanya.
About Krishna, as the founder of the faith.
Lord Krishna. We believe in Lord Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead,
yes.
and from him everything.
But would he be considered the founder of the movement? Because Lord Krishna predates 500 years, by millennia.
Yes.
So where is that origin, and who is that founder?
Well, Krishna spoke the Bhagavad-Gita about 5,000 years ago.
Yes.
Unlike the Bible and other scriptures that are indirectly about God, we take the Bhagavad-Gita as a literal word of God. So he was speaking in a conversation that took about less time than this television show.
Yeah.
And his words have been studied thousands of years ever since. Now, if I may, I'll show a picture of the modern founder of the movement. This is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He brought the teachings of Bhagavad-Gita and of Krishna to the West about 51 years ago.
Yes.
The same year Guyana was founded.
You're not drawing a link between the two, are you?
No, sir. But
There might be a cosmic link in it all.
He was your age, 70 years old, when he got on his steamship and traveled outside of India for the first time in his life. And he arrived in America with $5 and introduced the chanting and found that people were interested in alternative understandings and approaches to truth. It was back in the 60s, when people were more interested in countercultural experience. And the teachings, these ancient teachings from India, amazingly took root in America in that time and attracted thousands of young people, subsequently all over the world. So today this movement has gone throughout Russia, throughout China, throughout the Middle East, Africa, South America, all over. And today, whereas before the practices of Bhagavad-Gita and chanting were only in India, today you'll find that Hare Krishna is chanted in any major city all over the world.
Well, we did have when the indentured laborers, when the British invented that evil called the indentureship, they brought their religion with them as well from India. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. They brought a lot of the culture, the practices.
I go back to this, the central essence. What attracted you? What would you say attracted you, Mukunda,
That's-
to the movement?
It's a very good question, thank you. And I think it's also a very easy question to answer. As Kalakanta was mentioning Srila Prabhupada, he came and he came with that secret that the Vedic culture, the Indian culture, has kept with them in their Sanskrit literatures, and it's very philosophical. And he gave us that literature in English so that we could absorb that philosophy. So that for me was a big turn on to the Hare Krishna movement. But then there's also the other things, such as the mantra that we chant, how blissful that it can make you feel, and the association with those who are practicing this knowledge, who you could say are enlightened in this knowledge.
Now, you've completed college. You're
Yes.
a university graduate, and you have chosen this. Would you say this is a way of life for you now? Is it a religion? What's it for you? What's the movement? What does it mean to you?
It's a culture, a way of life. Yes, it's a way of living your day-to-day life and understanding the world around you in a new context, from a new paradigm.
Is it for you and for the younger members of the movement? Is it escapism that you're moving away from the materiality and the noise and the bluster of Western civilization and culture, and you're looking for something different?
I think that's there for sure. I think a lot of the young people, at least in my experience in America, they're doing that. And the more when they, a lot of them when they become exposed to the Bhagavad-Gita, a lot of them have never seen. I had never seen the Bhagavad-Gita before I saw it for the first time.
And when was that?
That was in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Someone gifted it to me, a devotee a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and I read it very eagerly. And Prabhupada, in his commentary on the original text, he put all the problems of his life and the whole world into perspective that I could understand, based on the philosophy that was being given, and along with the culture and practice to go with it. So it wasn't just a philosophy, and it wasn't just a dry philosophy, and it wasn't just a sentimental religion or culture. It was both of these combined.
Do you think, and I don't want you to be excommunicated, but do you think you have found what you were looking for when you embarked on this journey?
What's that saying? The taste is in
The proof of the pudding is in the eating.
Yeah.
proof of the pudding is in the eating. Sometimes we also hear you can judge a tree by its fruit.
Yes.
So this, as it was mentioned before, is a spiritual science. And for me, I went into it with that mind frame. Let me experiment. Let me just see what happens. And so the results were that I became more happy in my life. I had a sense of satisfaction, which I had through my other studies. I also studied some Buddhism, I even read the Quran. I was brought up in a Christian family. I went to college, I studied the sciences. But the practice of the bhakti yoga is
Yes.
what gave me satisfaction.
This is a provocative question. Someone who smokes marijuana will tell you that they found some alternative path. They found peace and tranquility and happiness. And how is there a difference?
No, there's a big difference.
And what's that difference?
That for happiness in spiritual life, nothing external is required. That happiness springs like a well within oneself, as opposed to depending on some substance, some circumstance, some other person. When we understand spiritual life in full, then that happiness becomes self-contained.
Mhm.
And we don't depend on anyone else or anything else. That's how Krishna consciousness is much different than any sort of intoxicant or material path. Those have a beginning and an end, those happinesses, those pleasures. They're pleasures,
Yes.
but they're limited. And unfortunately, we're very accustomed to these limited pleasures, and in pursuing them, we're missing the limitless pleasure that's within ourselves.
I recall when I was in the UK, down Oxford Street, the movement was very prominent. Youngsters, mainly whites, singing, dancing, just celebrating. The distinctive clothes, markings. Is this about form? Is the Hare Krishna movement about form, or the clashing of the symbols, the dancing, the music? What role does that play?
The form is just a manifestation of the substance. It's not about the form. The form is an expression of the deep inner substance. The profound experience, like Mukunda was describing, of discovering a new echelon of happiness.
Is that then a misconception as well as a misrepresentation of the movement?
Yes. Naturally, people don't understand what's motivating the devotees to go out and chant and to share their religious or their spiritual experience, I should say. And that tends to make people judge it on the externals. In fact, there are far more Hare Krishna people who aren't going out on Oxford Street or out in the public chanting, but rather...
Is that right?
Oh, yes, by far. These are just the ministers or the trainee ministers or the people who are doing an immersion course, sort of interning.
Yes.
The majority of members work in offices and live in suburbs or do ordinary things, but they do them for Krishna. They've learned the science of bhakti so that they can transform their lives from just pursuing money to pursuing love of Godhead.
So all the things that come with the religion are really manifestations of the more important fundamentals.
That's right. We're the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, not the International Society for baldy heads.
Well, his head is not bald.
It doesn't matter. The externals are inconsequential.
What we will do, and viewers, this is an unusual step. We will pause for a moment. We will have preparation to play some of the music, and we'll be back in less than 2 minutes. Please stay tuned.